Hi everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, then I'm so happy to meet you. If not, then welcome back. As always, if you could subscribe to my channel, that would be fantastic. And also give this video a big thumbs up if you like the sound of it. Turn on your notifications bell and you will get notified each time I have a new upload. So, getting into today's video, I'm going to be talking about what school was really like as an undiagnosed autistic child/teenager. So I'm going to be talking about primary school and I'm going to be talking about secondary school. I'm going to talk about the challenges I faced, the difficulties I faced, and how now looking back, I can see that was because I was autistic, but at the time because I didn't know, it was kind of the unknown and I didn't understand why I felt the way I felt or why I was struggling the way I was struggling. So, getting straight into it, one of the biggest things that I found difficult, and I've probably mentioned this before, is the uniform. Me and the uniform did not get on, we were not friends. We were not acquaintances, we were enemies. The feel of the uniform, I found the neck really tight. The material, I found it itchy. Just everything about the uniform I found to be a nightmare. And that was for primary school and for secondary school. And that's something I've always spoken about. I did a talk in my old school this year and that was one thing I mentioned was uniforms and making changes to the uniforms for students. Like, I'm not saying throw the uniform out the window, but I do think that changes need to be made to make them more comfortable, because you're there from like 9 to 4 in secondary school, sitting in this uniform all day, and it needs to be made more comfortable. I think particularly if you're someone who has sensory problems like myself, the feel of it, everything about it was just so uncomfortable. And that was one of the biggest things I found throughout school. It was one of the best things I think about going to university, was that you didn't have to wear a uniform. Moving along, another thing I found difficult was the socialising part of it. I was really lucky in primary and secondary school that I did have friends. I'm not sitting here saying I didn't have friends, but I always found it quite difficult in the sense of you kind of have this feeling of, I always had this feeling of, yes, I'm part of it, I have friends, but I also felt like I was always kind of on the outside looking in, or, you know, like masking and then trying to sort of figure out what everybody else was doing, and is this the way I should act, or is this the way I should act, which I think is a huge thing, particularly for girls, is masking and also imitating what's going on around you, which is sometimes not always the best idea. Sometimes it depends on the situation and the people you're with, but I was lucky that I did have friends, but I always found that inside I felt like I was sort of on the outside looking in. So the social side of school was really, really difficult. Another thing I found so hard in school was focusing, because you're expected to focus for hours, like, in school, and that for me was something that I found really hard to concentrate and focus. My attention span is not fantastic, and I can get distracted quite easily. And for me, that was something that I found hard. And like, I do think that, like, obviously when you're sitting in class for like 40 minutes, an hour, or whatever it may be, or if you're in primary school, you're in the same classroom all day, it is so hard to concentrate. I found that in secondary school, that whole like starting at 9 or half 9, not finishing until 4, really, really hard, a really grueling day. And then going home and having to do homework, like, for me it was just really, really hard. And like keeping up with the workload, keeping up with subjects that I mightn't necessarily have really enjoyed, but I had to do, that was really, really tough as well. Moving along, this is a big one. a secondary school one that some of you may be able to associate with. PE, physical education, was not for me. Every part of it did not suit me. I did not like it. In fact, I hated PE. Apologies to anyone who loves PE. But I remember we used to have to do this thing. It was like the fitness test, or like the bleep or the beep test or something. And it'd go beep and you had to run before the next beep. And like it got less time to run every time. Oh my God. I hate running. And I hate the way I look when I run. Like I always say I look like Big Bird when I run. Like it's just like it's all arms and it's all legs and it's all going everywhere. And trying to run before these beeps, it was just crazy. Like I hate it. And I was always the first one out then as well. And you know, when you're a teenager and you're the first one out, it doesn't feel particularly nice. It's like, oh my God, bring me on to another point in PE, was that the students always got to pick the team. So you'd have a captain and they'd be like, you. It was always Kit Ann last. It was almost like I was left last and they were like, well, I don't want her. You can have her. Do you know what I mean? Like, and when I think it's actually not very nice when you're being picked last. Like that is one thing. If you were a PE teacher out there, pick the bloody teams yourself and don't be asking the students to pick, because it is not very nice. Just go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 2's that side, 1's that side. Oh my God, me and PE. I feel like for the last couple of years of secondary school, I used to just bring in a note saying, Kit Ann can't do PE because whatever, which was fine. And we had to do like, if we weren't doing PE, we had to do like sheets of paper. I think it was like, I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. I feel like it was like you had to write, you'd be given a word and you'd write it so many times, and then you were given another word and write it so many times. Those are worksheets or something. And then hand them in at the end, which I would have preferred that to the physical education. But anyway, I feel like I went on a very big rant about physical education there, which I probably didn't mean to. Moving along to some other things I found hard. I feel like those ones that I'm talking about were some really big ones, and ones that I found hard throughout primary and throughout secondary, right up till I was finished. Looking back now, I can see that some of these issues or difficulties I was having was as a result of being autistic. And as well as that, like, I know now that I struggled with physical education because I was also dyspraxic, and I also have arthritis and fibromyalgia, which was why I was experiencing pain as well during physical education. So but at the time I didn't know any of this, but now looking back, I can see why I struggled a lot and why I struggled with socializing, why I struggled with maybe the workload, with the length of day, with having to come home and do homework. For me, it was a lot of kind of sensory problems with the uniform, but also sensory problems with having to be in like a crowded situation all day. For me, when I came home, that was when the meltdowns would come. It was like all day I was masking, I was trying to hold my head, I was trying to get through the day. When I would come home, that would be when I would have a meltdown, or when I would just have a sensory overload and I'd have a shutdown. There was times when I just couldn't even consider doing the homework that evening, because I was at a point where I just couldn't keep going. Moving along, another thing I wanted to talk about was something I struggled with. It was the second last year of secondary school. I started struggling really badly with anxiety and panic attacks. It was so bad that I would get to the school and I would be sitting in the car and I just would not be able to get out of the car. I can't even explain it really. It would just be like I physically could not get out of the car. I physically could not go into school. I missed, I think, the equivalent to 7 weeks from the days that I just couldn't go in. And then there was times when I would go into school, and I mean, even the thoughts of it now, of trying to get in those doors, is crazy. But anyway, the days that I would get in, sometimes by the time I get to the first break or by the time I get to lunch, I'd be at the vice principal's office saying I can't stay, I need to go home, I'm not feeling well. But it would be this kind of just an overload of everything, and panic attacks and the anxiety attacks is kind of what led me to getting my diagnosis. I started seeing a counsellor, and it was through her that she recommended I go forward for an assessment, and that was how I got my diagnosis in my final year of secondary school at the age of 17. I always describe it as a light bulb moment. It made me understand why I was struggling with all these things and why I did face these challenges and why there was days when I just couldn't get into school. And I think it made me feel like, kind of like ease up on myself a little bit, and kind of like, okay, this is why you're struggling, this is why you're having challenges. I could understand better. What else I wanted to talk about today was another thing that was a big challenge, particularly during my Leaving Cert. This is at a point where I did know I was autistic. Was so basically in Ireland, for the Leaving Cert and the Junior Cert for state exams, you can get what they call special accommodations. So that could be having a scribe, having someone read the questions to you, being in a room on your own, and being able to move around, having extra time. And that was something that I was entitled to. I had it for my Junior Cert because of my epilepsy. That was absolutely fine. But when it came to my Leaving Cert, it really should have been an automatic thing. Bearing in mind, by the time I came to my Leaving Cert, I had more diagnosis than when I had my Junior Cert. But it ended up being like a really complicated process. Like, it ended up being like, kind of like a thing of like Mammy having to ring the school and check to see if it was organised yet. I know that there had been like changes in staff and things like that, so I think that was probably part of the reason there was difficulties. But I do think that, like, when it comes to something like that, like, these accommodations should just be like automatic for people that need them. Like, school is stressful enough when you're autistic or when you're disabled or whatever, and exams are definitely stressful enough without sort of this thing of trying to sort of get your accommodations or whatever, like, because they are really helpful. Like, I found the accommodations really, really helpful. Like, I found having like a room on my own really, really helpful, being able to move around. I also had extra time, which was really, really helpful, particularly in the English exam, because your hand is just going 90 writing. But yeah, I do feel like the uncertainty of, will I have those accommodations? Will I not have those accommodations that I had in Junior Cert? That was really stressful. That was a point that was particularly stressful. Another thing, God, I have quite a few things, challenges and things that I found hard. But anyway, another thing was like the uncertainty in classes. I don't know if anyone else can relate to that, but like, if a teacher says we're covering whatever, World War II tomorrow, and then suddenly we're covering something else, like, I find that really stressful. Like, I liked certainty and I liked knowing what was happening, and I liked, like, if a teacher said we're covering something, like, I liked to cover that and not be like switching and changing and covering different things. Like, that was something that really I found really hard. Note taking, trying to keep up with what a teacher was saying and take notes, or like if the teacher's writing on the board and trying to keep up with that. Oh my God, I found that really hard. Like, I definitely think notes should be handed out, like, I don't know, typed up, printed, handed out, emailed, whatever you want to do, sort of thing. But yeah, definitely notes. Oh my God, trying to take notes was really hard because I have a dyspraxia, and so I'm like quite a slow writer. I also used to always get like bad pains in my wrists from writing as well. But anyway, I feel like I've covered quite a bit. I feel like I've ran through like a lot of things that I found difficult. I also feel like I had an ever so slight bit of a rant here and there, but I do think that a lot of you can probably associate with a lot of what I'm after speaking about. As always, if you associate or if you have other challenges you found, please feel free to keep the conversation going in the comments below. It's already proven to be one of my longest videos, so I am going to do part 2 to this video, where I want to talk about some tips for students that I feel helped me, or I feel looking back would have helped me in school, that I hope will help some people. And I also wanted to do some pointers on what I feel teachers and schools could do differently to help autistic students, neurodivergent students. So I'm going to do a part 2 to this video. This is part 1. And thank you very much for watching. As always, I appreciate it. As always, feel free to keep the conversation going in the comments down below. I love reading your comments. I love replying to your comments. And if you feel this video can help somebody, please share it with them. If you feel people can relate to it, then that's fantastic. Thank you very much, and I shall see you in part 2 of this video. And thank you very much for watching.